started playing the guitar in 50, 57, 58, and I heard this band, and they had mops, those mop tops like Little Richard and all those guys, Richie Valens. And I heard this guy play the guitar, and he had a beautiful sound. He was a combination of Chuck Berry, B.B. King, and Little Richard, and that's all he would play, So he had it down. And I was just a kid, but it's the first time that rock and roll or music, this kind of music, it was like a shot of electricity. It's the first time that I wanted to get serious about music, because before that I played violin and I knew a lot of classical songs, in the violin, but I thought it was just something to appease my dad or something. Yeah, we listened to a lot of radio. Being in Tijuana is you get the same radio stations as San Diego, so we got to hear a lot of good music. My father was my best teacher. My father's always taught me how to play the guitar and the violin. He taught me how to read. He taught me the value and the feeling and the main essence of music. Whatever I know from guitar, he taught it to me. Chords, and so he's the culprit, or he's the. My whole family moved to San Francisco around 59, 60, and I didn't want to come because I wanted to stay over there. I was already gigging, nightclubs. It's pretty much like over here in any kind of place where people strip, girls strip down, and then for an hour they take a break, and then the musicians play for a break for an hour, some blues and stuff like that. So it was that kind of thing. So I didn't want to come back here. Right. I didn't want to start in junior high school all over again because I couldn't speak English, so I had to start all over again. And I didn't want to be around kids. I wanted to be around grown-up people, getting high and all that stuff. I really loved it. First of all, coming into San Francisco and going to school again, uh, it was beautiful because I wasn't aware that here in the United States you get to have a lot of teachers in one day and a lot of students. I mean, a lot of classmates. In classrooms over there in Tijuana, in Mexico, you get one teacher for the whole year and one class and one room, and that's it. And one teacher teaches you everything. So I made a lot of friends. The facilities, to get around, the vibration, everything was just different. I liked it. Especially San Francisco. I wouldn't live anywhere else. Well, in those days, I mainly used to listen to B.B. King. I still listen to a lot to B.B. King, but now I listen to more to other people. But B.B. King, Gabor Sabo, the Beatles, Clapton, Michael Bloomfield. Once I opened my eyes, I turned around and the Fillmore was open, and everybody was playing there. Steve Miller and Butterfield Blues Band, and all these people, So it was education of a lifetime, to be around San Francisco around that era, not so much the Grateful Dead and all the other groups from San Francisco, but, at those days, Bill Graham used to throw shows like Laura Nyro and the Grateful Dead and Miles Davis, real different things, which was fantastic, One time they had Jimi Hendrix, Gabor Sabo, and Jefferson Airplane. So that was an education. You went there. You see a lot of kids, white kids go over there, and they go crazy over 10 years after, and then they get to see also Buddy Rich, So like I said, it was a special time, Yeah, well, it's too bad. I wish, I keep trying to get together the Police, us, and Weather Report, to do shows like that. So far, I think we may play with the Police. Someday I like to get the Weather Report also in there. I like to do shows like that because it's like a very well balanced meal kind of thing. Instead of just getting the same thing. Blues, 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 or rock, rock, rock. Well, the first band we didn't have a name, but I guess it was the Santana Blues Band. Greg Raleigh was already in it, and we auditioned to play it and open up for Steve Miller and Howlin' Wolf or something like that. But I got sick. I had tuberculosis, so they put me in the hospital, and I had to cancel, and we had to start all over again. Some guys quit in the band, and but mainly those guys stayed in the band. Greg and Michael Carabello was there already, the conga player. So that was the beginning of the band. Mainly around San Francisco, and then once we started to get brave, we started playing at the Sky River Rock Festival in Seattle. So we became more popular in Seattle, all over California. Anywhere outside of California, nobody knew us. But from California to even to Seattle and Portland, people knew about us. And it was a great time because we were opening up for a lot of groups like Procol Harum, and people like that who were, they had hits already on the radio. And all of a sudden we found out that we didn't have an album out, but we were headlining over them because the people just, we were getting this crowd. You know, and it's because of the percussion. It's a very festive kind of atmosphere that that it evokes. Well, it's like Italian food without spices. It ain't Italian food, or Mexican food without spices, or Indian food, without the spices. You know. So I like the percussion, whether it's Brazilian or Cuban or Afro-Cuban or just Afro. Uh, I like percussion. Percussion is, I always say, is the male aspect of it, and the other part, the melodic, is the female aspect. So I always like to have both as much as possible. Yeah, records heard about it, and CBS was coming around. Atlantic came around, but I didn't want to be with Atlantic at that time, and I still want to be just with CBS. I think they're the best and they're the worst. It's like they have too many. Sometimes it seems like they have too many middlemen. But they are the best in distribution and a lot of things. Yeah, we played in Woodstock before the album came out. Actually, about a month, 2 months. Yeah, we did the album in a week, recorded everything, and it took a week to mix it. And we had a lot of fun. At that time we didn't know that you're supposed to take your time and go for quality. It was just raw. We just said, let's cut it. We recorded the album, and because I remember when we were in Woodstock, we 2 or 3 weeks after that, the album came out. Well, I was in Boston when I first heard it, and to me the East Coast was like Mars, because always been from the West Coast, but I loved it, and I still love what I love about the East Coast is the dynamism. There's a tremendous energy happening in here, that it's not on the West Coast. They're not lethargic, but they're not as aggressive or dynamic as the East Coast. So I love it. I gotta come here at least 10 times a year, just to recharge. Yeah, Evil Ways is a song that Bill Graham took us into his office, and he always wanted, he said, I got this song that I think you guys should do, man. It's from Willie Bobo, and, I said, sure, let's hear it. And we said, okay, it sounded good. And so we executed, yeah. Jingo is a song that we used to hear in the park all the time, in aquatic park. There's this park in San Francisco, right outside all those hotels, and it's between the hotels and the beach, and all these conga players, they still do. They get together every weekend and they drink wine and they play congas. A bunch of conga players. I guess it's like the fountain here in Central Park, And that's where we heard Jingo, So we said, hey, let's put some electricity in there, and we did it. But it comes from Olatunji, Drowns the Passion. Persuasion is a song that Greg wrote. We helped him out with it. We wanted to do a song that was kind of like between Sly and rock, that kind of stuff. Soul Sacrifice is a song that Marcus Malone is the first conga player that we had brought in. He had a feel with it, and Greg and I helped him out with the changes and the orchestral like themes in the end and stuff like that. It's a song that when we played in Woodstock, that's what made everybody aware that there was something other than what was happening in the West Coast or East Coast, and it was Santana, and I was really proud, grateful and proud because at that time they played a preview for this movie in some place here in New York, and I went there, and friends from Jimmy were there, and they said that Jimmy really was impressed with the Santana band as a whole, and so we felt, more confident and, more reassured that that what we were doing it was significant. You know, sometimes when you're a kid, you know, at that time, you know, you don't know if you're gonna, you know, if you're just going for the ride or if you know. But at that time, what I'm trying to say is that that song. It made us realize that we're musicians first and foremost.
Right.
You know, and we have a chemistry that other bands don't have. You know, they have their own chemistry. Yeah, well, what happened is that the band that was supposed to play before us, a bunch of other bands, they didn't show up or they couldn't get because it was too crowded, you know. And we were supposed to go on at night,
Right.
you know, and those bands, you know, there was no other bands, and you know, I was very high myself, you know, I had taken either LSD or mescaline, you know,
Right.
because I used to do that in those days, 8 hours before the concert. So at that time, was you know, I thought that's what was happening, you know. But I had just taken it like 2 hours before they told me, you know, you guys got to go on right now, or you ain't gonna go at all. So you can't imagine, you know, it was play for your life, you know, eventually, you know, and it was fun though. I mean, I remember seeing the people look like an ocean of teeth, hair, and eyes, and you know, hands, and you know, it was beautiful. Well, with the exception of the Police and Weather Report and Miles and a few other bands, uh, you know, uh, nobody's really exploring anything. You know, in the '60s, it was like you could almost hear Bobby Goldsboro, that's jazz or something. I mean, everybody was sticking out their neck all the time. You know, Miles was starting to play rock, and rock people were starting to play jazz. Somebody was playing, you know, what they call new wave. They were playing it then, like the Who and with country and western. I mean, it was a time of exploring things at all costs, no matter what the risk. You know, now people just yeah, it's different. You know, but you know, there, like I said, there are some good things today. It's just that it's not as out front like it was in those days. You know, because people were exploring a lot. You know, they were introducing Indian music, raga music with jazz and free form. You know, and all of a sudden, man, like rock and roll bands like the Doors are the epitome of it. You know, the Doors were you could hear jazz, you could hear Indian music. The music in those days was filled with imagery. You know, it's like they used to say, it was a kaleidos. It was like a light show for a blind man. You know, and then nowadays it's just different. You know, it's just much different. So I kind of still like those times. You know.